Imagine you're walking alone through a dark forest as night falls. The breeze rustles the leaves, and everything around you seems to whisper ancient secrets. Suddenly, you hear a soft noise, like gentle footsteps. Your heart races, and you stop, trying to listen more closely. Who could be there with you so late? Could it be an animal? Or perhaps, something mysterious you've never seen before? Up ahead, among the shadows, a majestic figure appears, with feathers that shine like jewels under the moonlight. It's a peacock, standing proudly, looking your way as if it has something important to tell you. But it's not alone. Near it, almost invisible, is a heron, silent but with a gaze full of wisdom. They are about to tell you a story. A story about pride, beauty, and something even more important than all of that. But be careful, because this story will make you think in a way you may have never thought before. Are you ready to discover what the peacock and the heron have to teach? It was a spring morning in the heart of an enchanted forest, where the air was pure, and the sounds of nature formed a calm and relaxing symphony. Under a ray of sunlight piercing through the leaves, a peacock named Pliny was resting. Pliny wasn't just any peacock. He was known for the vibrant colors of his feathers that, when spread, formed an almost hypnotic rainbow. Since he was young, Pliny had heard praises from his family and other animals in the forest about his unique beauty, and this filled him with pride. He was aware of his appearance, and unlike many, he didn't mind standing out. On this particular morning, Pliny had a purpose. He wanted to impress someone new. He looked around with his keen and astute eyes, thinking about who would be the next lucky one to witness the spectacle of his feathers. That's when he spotted Gabby, a heron with long white wings, delicate and serene, who had just landed by the edge of a lake. Gabby was different from the other birds Pliny knew. She had an elegant posture, without ostentation, and seemed more interested in flying than being noticed. This heron must be used to plain, boring birds, thought Pliny, adjusting himself with an air of superiority. I'll give her the gift of seeing my beauty up close. And with a charming sway, he approached, stretching each feather precisely. Pliny was an experienced peacock and knew how to leave his audience speechless. He puffed his chest, lifted his tail, and opened it into a fan, creating a true spectacle of shimmering colors under the sun. It was as if he had prepared that moment for weeks. Seeing Pliny approaching, Gabby, who had been focused on the calm water of the lake, looked at him with curiosity. She had heard about peacocks and their fame for showing off, but she had never seen one up close. With a slight smile, she observed his approach, still not understanding the reason for his grand entrance. Pliny, however, didn't just want to be looked at, he wanted to be admired. In his melodious voice he said, "Good morning, my dear heron. I couldn't help but notice you were alone, so I thought you might appreciate a bit of beauty to brighten your day." Gabby blinked, a bit surprised by the comment, but maintained her composure. She knew Pliny wanted to impress her, and she found the scene somewhat amusing. "Oh, good morning, Mr. Peacock. I see you're quite confident in your appearance." The peacock, feeling he had captured the heron's attention, continued, "Well, my dear, I'd say I have plenty of reasons to be confident. Just look at the colors of my feathers. This blue, this shining green. They're unique in the forest." He turned, displaying the full fan so she could see every detail. The colors blended in perfect patterns, and he knew it was a spectacle worthy of applause. But Gabby didn't seem as impressed as he had expected. She kept her gentle smile, but her gaze was distant, as if she were thinking about something beyond the colors. Intrigued, Pliny furrowed his brows and stepped a bit closer, hoping she would say something more. "Don't get me wrong, Pliny," she said calmly. "Your feathers are truly beautiful. But there's something in me that I appreciate even more than appearance. Something that may not be so easy to notice at first glance." Pliny was surprised. He was used to direct compliments and never expected anyone to question the importance of his beauty. Pliny felt intrigued. Something more important than beauty? He let out a small laugh, trying to hide his surprise. He was known for his charm, but this heron was stirring his pride in an unexpected way. Thinking she might not have fully understood the splendor before her, he decided to intensify his presentation. With a graceful spin, Pliny fully opened his feathers, creating a monumental arc of colors. The sunlight made each shade shine even brighter: deep blue, emerald green, subtle gold, a true feathered rainbow. He positioned himself strategically so that every movement would reveal a new perspective of his colors, as if each feather were telling its own story. "I bet you've never seen anything as beautiful as this, Gabby," he said, lifting his beak with a triumphant air. "My feathers are unmatched. In fact, All the animals in the forest stop to admire me as I pass by. Even the old crow, who never praises anyone, once muttered an impressive when he saw me pass. He laughed, remembering the episode. And of course, when I attend the annual bird gatherings, I always steal the show. Everyone knows me as the most beautiful peacock in the forest. Beauty, my dear, is an art, and I am the artist. As Pliny spoke, he kept his eyes fixed on Gabby, expecting some sign that she was impressed. However, the heron remained serene, observing him with a calm smile but without any grand reaction. This behavior puzzled Pliny, who was used to dazzling everyone around him. Normally, other birds were left speechless at his display of colors. But this heron, she seemed to have something else on her mind. Determined to provoke a response, he said, "Well, Gabby, you also have elegant white feathers, but don't you think you're missing a bit of color? Just imagine if you could have feathers like mine. People would talk about you throughout the forest. Isn't it wonderful to be admired by everyone?" Gabby tilted her head, looking at Pliny with a thoughtful expression. She seemed almost amused by the scene, but not in a mocking way. It was as if she genuinely wanted to understand what drove Pliny to take such pride in his appearance. "I understand your point, Pliny," she said calmly, "and I know your feathers are truly beautiful. But for me, life is more than just a good appearance. There's something I value greatly, something that perhaps goes unnoticed by many." Pliny blinked, intrigued. He was used to compliments and admiration, and rarely encountered anyone who didn't seem dazzled by his beauty. But what could be more important than being noticed and admired? He asked, sincerely curious. He thought life was meant to be one grand display, an eternal runway where he could shine and receive invisible applause. Gabby chuckled softly, her laugh sounding like the gentle murmur of the wind over the lake. "You know, Pliny," she began, "not all of us need the same kind of recognition. I prefer something that brings me freedom. For me, the real joy lies in being able to fly, to see the world from a broad perspective, to explore the unknown, to feel the wind beneath my wings. When I'm in the sky, I feel a peace and pleasure that no appearance can provide." Pliny frowned. He had never thought about flying that way. Sure, he could fly too, but he didn't devote much time to it. For him, the important thing was to be seen, to be admired. The concept of seeking something beyond appearance, something internal, was new to him. Even so, he didn't want to give up so easily. "Well, Gabby," he said, trying to remain confident, "flying might be pleasurable, but think of what you're missing. I never tire of being the center of attention. It's wonderful when everyone stops to look, to comment on my beauty. It's as if I was born to shine. Don't you feel like you're missing out by not being admired by everyone?" Gabby smiled again, this time with a deeper look. She wasn't trying to diminish Pliny, but rather to show him another perspective. "Pliny," she responded with a gentle and understanding tone, "not everything that brings us satisfaction can be seen from the outside. There's a joy in being free, in being able to fly wherever my heart desires, without worrying about the opinions of others. Beauty is fleeting, but the memories of my journeys through the sky, those are forever. And that is the wealth I value." Faced with these words, Pliny was speechless for a few moments. He had never stopped to think that each bird might have something unique to offer, something that wasn't limited to what others could see. In silence, he realized that perhaps there was more to learn about what truly brings someone happiness. Pliny grew thoughtful, unsure of exactly what to say. He wasn't used to this type of conversation. Usually, the other animals praised and agreed with him, which made him confident that beauty was the greatest treasure one could have. But Gabby seemed to see the world in such a different, almost mysterious way, and this intrigued him. He felt that there was something he wasn't fully understanding. "Gabby," he began cautiously, trying to understand better what she meant. "I understand that flying is a special skill. Don't get me wrong, flying is great and all, but is it really enough for you? Don't you think life is more interesting when you can impress people?" Gabby looked at him with a serene smile, as if she knew exactly what Pliny was thinking. She sighed lightly, as if about to share a deep and precious secret. "Pliny," she replied with a soft, wise voice, "beauty is indeed wonderful, but it's fleeting. In the end, what I love most is the freedom that flying gives me. When I'm up there in the sky, I see the whole world from a new perspective. The mountains, the rivers, the trees. They all seem to connect in a unique way that only those who fly can perceive." Pliny continued listening to her attentively. Each of her words seemed to awaken a new vision of the world in him. "But it's not just that, Pliny. When I'm flying, I feel whole, connected with myself and the nature around me. I don't fly to be seen or admired. I fly because it makes me happy. I fly because the wind beneath my wings reminds me that I'm part of something greater. These words touched Pliny deeply. He had never thought of life in this way. To him, the forest was just a stage where he could display his beauty, but to Gabby, it was much more. She saw the world as a great work of art, where each being had a role, a special connection to the whole. He remained silent for a moment, reflecting on this, while Gabby waited patiently, unhurried, respecting his time. But Pliny's pride was still there, resilient, and he didn't want to admit that perhaps, just perhaps, he might be wrong in focusing so much on his appearance. With a slightly more defensive tone, he said, "But Gabby, if no one notices what you do, if no one sees what you see from up there, what's the point of it all? I, for instance, may never have seen the world as you see it, but I will always be remembered as the most beautiful peacock in the forest. Isn't that what matters in the end?" Gabby gave a small laugh, not of mockery, but of tenderness. "Ah, Pliny," she said gently, "the beauty you value so much is something that others see, but the freedom I feel when I fly is something I live. It's mine, a happiness that no one can take from me. And you know, sometimes, the most precious things are those that only we ourselves can see and feel." There was something poetic and almost magical in Gabby's words. She had a serenity that Pliny had never encountered in another animal. He felt a pang of envy, not of the ability to fly, but of the peace Gabby seemed to carry within herself. She didn't need others' approval. She didn't need anyone to praise or applaud her. She had something he couldn't define, a genuine, simple joy that came from within and didn't depend on how others saw her. "But, have you never wanted to be admired?" Pliny asked, trying to understand more. "Don't you miss being the center of attention, being recognized for your beauty or your skill?" Gabby thought for a moment and replied sincerely, "You know, Pliny, admiration from others is a beautiful thing to receive, but it's not something I seek. I prefer happiness that comes from within. I've been lucky enough to see incredible places, fly above the clouds, cross mountains, and watch the sunrise from heights where most other animals can't reach. Those moments are mine, and they're what make me feel alive." That response made Pliny stop and reflect even more. He had spent so much time focused on being admired that he had never really asked himself what truly made him happy. He thought beauty was his greatest treasure, but listening to Gabby, he began to wonder if there was something more he was missing. "What I'm trying to say, Pliny," Gabby continued kindly, "is that true joy and true value lie in what fills us from the inside. Appearance is something others can see, but what we feel, what we experience and learn, that is what truly makes us who we are." Pliny remained silent, and for the first time, he didn't know how to respond. He felt as if a door had been opened within him, a new possibility for seeing the world and understanding himself. He began to realize that perhaps beauty, as fascinating as it was, wasn't the only treasure he could possess. Pliny's silence was almost palpable. He was absorbing each of Gabby's words as if they were rays of sunlight illuminating parts of his mind he had never explored. For the first time, he found himself reflecting on who he was beyond his appearance. Gabby, with her calmness and wisdom, seemed to have planted a seed in his heart, something that made him question the purpose of all his vanity. "So Gabby," he finally said, with a softer and more introspective tone, "are you saying that there's more to life than being admired?" He seemed a little embarrassed to say it out loud, but he knew Gabby wouldn't judge him. She simply nodded, with a gentle smile. "Yes, Pliny. And if you allow yourself, you might discover that there's a much greater beauty than the one seen from the outside. True beauty lies in how we feel and in the experiences we live, in the things we learn, and in how we grow. Flying teaches me to see the greatness of the world and the humility within each of us." Pliny realized that life was much richer and deeper than he had imagined. Instead of just being the most beautiful peacock, he could be more complete, truer to himself, perhaps even learn something new, like Gabby did with her freedom. He lowered his colorful feathers, and in doing so, he felt lighter, as if he had left behind an invisible weight. Pliny remained silent for a few moments as Gabby's words echoed in his mind. That conversation was affecting him in a way he had never imagined possible. He, who had always considered his beauty his greatest gift, was beginning to question it. Could there be more to life than being admired? This idea seemed both attractive and unsettling. "So you really believe that happiness comes from something that's inside?" Pliny asked, with a soft, almost timid voice, as if discovering a new world. Gabby nodded with an understanding smile. "Exactly, Pliny. True satisfaction doesn't come from how others see us, but from what we experience, what we feel, and how we relate to the world around us. Gabby paused, observing the peacock with a warm look. You see, Pliny, when I'm flying, I feel a joy and peace that depend on no one else. It doesn't matter if anyone sees me or not. What matters is the freedom I feel, the sensation that I'm connected to something greater. And you know, she continued, I think that makes me, in a way, more complete, stronger. Pliny reflected on these words. He had never felt such a deep connection with himself. For him, it had always been important to be noticed and praised, and now for the first time, he felt that there might be something more valuable than external admiration. He looked at his own feathers, still beautiful and colorful, but no longer as radiant as before. Suddenly, they seemed a little less important than he had thought. So Gabby, he said with a slight smile, do you really think I could find happiness in something beyond beauty? He still seemed hesitant, but there was a glimmer of hope in his voice. I always thought my purpose was to impress others, but maybe I was wrong. Gabby nodded. Yes, Pliny. We all have different gifts. You can find something that brings peace and joy to you, something that is just yours, as flying is for me. It might not need to be so obvious, but it will be yours, and no one can take it from you. These words made Pliny feel something new, a mixture of humility and gratitude. He looked at the lake, where his reflection blended with the blue of the sky, and thought about how his pursuit of admiration had shaped his life. But now he wanted more than just to be admired. He wanted to find what truly completed him. With a gentle sigh, he lowered his feathers, as if bidding farewell to an old version of himself. Gabby, beside him, smiled tenderly. She knew that the peacock was discovering something new, something that no one could teach him, but that he needed to feel. He didn't need to change completely or stop being who he was, but to understand that his beauty was only a part of him, not all of who he was. Thank you, Gabby, said Pliny, with sincerity. Today, you taught me something worth more than all the compliments I've ever received. As Pliny looked at the lake and reflected on Gabby's words, he felt as if an invisible weight had been lifted from his shoulders. For the first time, he wasn't trying to impress anyone. Instead, he was discovering something deeper about himself. The feeling was strange, yet at the same time, it was as if a new version of him was awakening. Gabby observed Pliny's expression, seeing in him a different kind of light, like someone who is finally beginning to understand the true essence of life. Pliny, she said softly, outer beauty may attract for a time, but what truly matters is who we are inside. Our kindness, our curiosity, and the way we connect with the world around us. That's what leaves a true mark. Pliny nodded, feeling each word sink deeply. He looked at his feathers, which had always been his source of pride, and realized that they were only a part of his life, but not his entire identity. He smiled at Gabby, grateful for this new perspective. Gabby, today you showed me that being special goes far beyond what the eyes can see. With a friendly wave, Gabby spread her wings and took flight, leaving Pliny with a new sense of peace. He knew that from that day on, he would seek more than just the admiration of others. He would seek to truly know himself. So, what did you think of this story about the peacock and the heron? Now you know that, no matter how enchanting outer beauty may be, what really matters is what we have inside, right? So next time you feel tempted to focus only on appearance, remember, the real magic lies in who we truly are, in our qualities, and in our heart. Oh, and stay tuned. Because, just as the peacock learned to look beyond what the eyes can see, there's always something new for us to learn that can change how we see the world. If you enjoyed this story and want to hear more like it, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. That way, you won't miss any new adventures full of mystery and lessons. See you next time.